Okay, so it is recording, and I guess everybody who's listening, you could pick to raise your hand if you want to say something. It's totally fine. And in the chat, if you look at the upper right-hand corner, there's a little chat bubble. You can chat there, also for like text chat stuff. And I'll be watching it, and this will all be in the recording. So, okay, Pian.
Thanks a lot, Josh. So welcome everyone. I've been asked to make a small presentation about what's the current state about Apple DDMs in FileWave. So here we are. Don't hesitate to ask questions. I have some slides. You can see 23 slides. It's more something to have some discussions, some information there, but really Discord events are really there to have discussions, to have questions answered. I managed to pick one of our main developer on the Apple DDM side, so he's hiding in the crowd. So feel free to ask questions and to ask for new features or new things. He's taking notes, and he's there to help and to help me answering questions. So today, what will we talk? We will be talking about DDM. So first, a little bit of history, where we're at and what happened before. I'm not sure how much you know about DDM, so we'll try to go quickly through the concepts, how it works. So we are talking about the same things, about the same concepts, the same vocabulary. One of the questions I've been several times asked is, should I do DDM or should I do MDM? So we'll try to answer these questions today. As you will be using DDM if you are not already, and I'm sure you are already, you may need some help sometimes when things are not working. So we'll have some troubleshooting steps, some guidelines, how we do that internally, and these ones could help you. And a sneak peek of what we will be doing in FileWave regarding DDM topic. So let's jump in. A little bit of history, which started a long time ago, 33 years ago. We started with FileWave, and we helped some people to manage their Macs around the world. I see in the name some old customers who joined FileWave even before I joined, and yeah, they started to use FileWave a long time ago. 2007, Steve Jobs released a new iPod with touchscreen, new internet device, and new communicator called iPhone, which changed completely how we deal with mobile device. And it took Apple 3 more years to bring MDM support with iOS 4, which opened completely the door to device management. And that's where most of you are managing devices, including Apple devices. So since then, bunch of improvements on Apple side, on the API side, and on FileWave to support all of them. OTA, VPP, DEP, Apple School and Business Manager some years later. And 10 years after MDM has been released, Apple introduced DDM, Declarative Device Management. The goal from Apple was to offer a completely new, or not completely new, but at least a new way of managing their devices. And let's have a look on what it is and small. Yeah, I don't know if anyone was already there, and I think some of you were, but that was FileWave, if I remember correctly, FileWave 6, just right after I joined in 2013. So long time ago. So maybe before we jump on DDM, small recap of what is MDM and how it works. It's based on commands. So you enroll your device to an MDM server. The MDM server sends push notifications to Apple. Apple contacts the device comes back to the server and asks, hey, what should I do? And we have over 60 commands available today to manage the device. So we can install application, remove application, get the list of applications, get the list of managed application, install a profile, erase device. So I will not go through the 60 commands we have, but you get the idea. It works quite okay, but it means that for each item, the device needs to contact FileWave, your MDM server, ask for the next command. We then send the next command, and the device executes the command, or at least acknowledge the command, and then goes back to FileWave and say, okay, that's the result. What should I do next? So, which means that FileWave has to maintain a command queue. Typical example, you want to install a VPP5 set and a profile. We will add install application list command, install profile list command to the command queue. The device will check in and return us the list of apps on the device, the list of profiles on the device. Based on these two lists and based on what you want to have on the device, we will add install application or remove application commands, the same for profiles and the same for everything. So if now we have to remove 10 apps, that means we need to add 10 times remove application commands. And if you look at this nice screenshot on the right-hand side, you will see a long list of install application commands, one by one for each separated apps. So it's quite complex. FileWave has to do a lot of computation to make sure that your devices are matching what you really want to have on the devices. And it takes time, and it's a lot of communication between FileWave and the device. If you multiply this by the number of devices you have, it explains why sometimes it takes a little bit of time until all your devices are up to date, and why it sometimes can consume a lot of resources on the server and on your network. So that's where DDM comes into play. So DDM, declarative device management. And the idea is that instead of having a command-based API, we have one unique declaration, which defines the state you want to have on the device. Which is a bit fun for FileWave, because if we look at it, FileWave generates, when you hit model update, what we call a manifest. And the manifest is a list of what should be on the device. So all the file sets you have associated, either directly or using deployments or using smart groups, to a device, we build this list with all the metadata about these file sets. And DDM, the declaration, is nothing else than that. It's a long document which declares what's the state of the device. So I'm not sure if someone from Apple looked at what FileWave was doing and just copied what we have done. Probably not, but at least it's super nice to see that, yeah, we had more or less the same idea even some years earlier. One important thing to mention, DDM is not a completely separated protocol. DDM protocol is built on top of MDM, and it's an extension of the existing MDM framework. There is one command, which is DDM or declaration update. So the declaration is based really on top of MDM. So it's not something which is completely new. It's really an improvement and an extension of the existing protocol. That could be important. You will see in the troubleshooting steps. The way Apple implemented it is that it's already designed now to be evolutive for the future, and even right now. The idea is that when you change something for the declaration, you will not have to change the complete declaration, which would be a bit stupid, because we try to have something to save resources, and then if you just want to add another app to your devices, if you would have to send again the whole declaration, which could be huge, that would defeat the purpose of saving resources. So the protocol is designed to do, okay, I am adding this app, I'm removing this app, and to deal with granular modifications. And one thing which is really cool and that I really would like to bring to FileWave quite soon is Apple introduced on-device predicates, which is a cool feature which allows to have evaluation directly on the device if the configuration, we will talk about that later, applies or not. So we can we will be able to do something where you can define directly based on the device without hammering the server what's on the device, depending on the conditions you will define. Just checking the chat, no question yet. So don't hesitate if you have any question.
Yeah, and I'm watching it too. I'll
Yep.
poke you if
Okay.
I see one.
I have a second screen, but yeah, sometimes I could miss it. So in terms of terminology, you've been used to command queue, you've been used to APN, you've been used to profiles. Apple decided to add new stuff, which is cool because sometimes it's a bit bad that we reuse the same terminology for two different items. Now you have new items to learn. So if I remember correctly, in one of the very, very first WWDC presentation, they call it the 5 pillars of declarative device management, and especially the 3 first. So it's the names you will see in lots of places in FileWave, especially the 2 first ones, configurations and assets. So configurations, you could take it as the equivalent of the legacy profiles we have in MDM. It's bunch of settings. A small note, you were used, or if you looked at profiles for a long time, there are XML in a mobile config file, usually plist. So the format, historical format from Apple on Apple side. Configurations are JSON files, which is in theory a little bit more modern. So it's more or less the same thing. You have dictionary that defines settings that you want to apply on devices. Apple decided to improve the load on server and it's a bit a two sides thing. They made it simpler and more complicated at the same time by bringing assets. Assets are pieces of information which are shared across configurations. So typically, if you have a login password, which could be reused in 2 different accounts, today, if you are creating 2 profiles, you have the user and the password in both profiles. And if you have to change it, you have to change the 2 profiles and update the profiles again. With DDM, the profile will be moved to an asset, which is a component created by Apple or in the Apple world. And this asset will be used by both configurations, which means that if you change the password asset, it will be automatically updated for all activations using that asset. So we will get into details a bit later, but that's the idea. On top of that, they have activations. So that's something you will see in FileWave troubleshooting step as well. The activation is the controller of the configurations. That's the thing which defines if the configuration is applied or not. And I just talked earlier about the fact that you can, Apple allows to have configuration which are enabled depending on the context. This goes through the activations, so that's metadata of the activation. So these are the 3 components Apple introduced with DDM: configurations, assets, and activations. On top of that, we have status reports, which is a really cool feature. DDM brings near real-time updates. Before we send DM, the device will never contact FileWave unless we send a notification to the device through the push notification service, and we send the device a command asking for the state. With DDM, your FileWave server can subscribe to statuses and then get up-to-date reports when something happens. So the device will send the notification directly instead of having FileWave polling for the information, which is way more efficient, and the statuses came much earlier to FileWaves. So that's really cool for device management. And organization settings, but this one, it's something which is really internal for now. So, how does it look like? You've seen that we have introduced the configuration editor. We'll see a little bit after, but the idea is that if you want to deploy an email configuration to a device, at the end, we deploy the identity asset, which is the username password for the email account, maybe a certificate asset if you want to have encryption, or if you want to add some server verification using certificates. You have the mail configuration, which contain all the settings. So the mail server, the URL, the type of, are you using IMAP, are you using SMTP, and so on. And an activation will be used to configure the device and say, okay, this configuration will be enabled on the device. So that's how DDM works. Configurations. That's really the most visible part of DDM. That's the one you will have to deal with. It's we can call this a replacement for profiles, more or less. It's a bit more complicated than that, but Apple is gradually replacing the traditional profiles we have. They started initially with everything account. So the old CalDAV account, CalDAV exchange are now could be replaced by configurations. To know not all profiles. I mean, we have something not far from 100 profiles available in FileWave. Not all of them are available as configurations. And it's not because FileWave did not implement all of them. It's because they are not available as configuration at all. Maybe just to know, there is a legacy API to use the old profiles in DDM, but it's just a protocol API thingy. There is nothing specific there for you. So today you have profiles which are still able to do more or less 100 different topics, and Apple is adding every release and even every small releases new configurations that we introduce in FileWave as well. And on top of the configurations which are profiles plus plus, they added new configurations. So for instance, there is a new configuration for screen sharing, the application which is the remote desktop application from Apple. Especially for K12, there is math settings, which allows configuring the calculator app, enable or disabling AI or things like that. It's directly in a new DDM, and there is no profile, legacy profile to deal with this. So we are in transition phase where we still have the old profiles which are useful, but Apple is bringing new configurations every release. Beyond configurations, DDM is also used, like MDM is not just profiles, it's used a lot under the hood for things which are done directly by FileWave using DDM, but without you knowing that we are using DDM. So for instance, OS updates, which are now available for all platforms. tvOS is coming with FileWave 16.1 and tvOS 18.4. They are way more reliable than installing updates via MDM, especially on macOS. I don't remember how many bug tickets we opened with Apple for MDM, and a lot of them were closed as, yeah, we will fix that for DDM. And now with DDM, it works much better. The MDM protocol was even complicated because we had to send one command to download the update. Then we had to poll the device until to know when the update was installed. And then we were able to install the update. Now with DDM, we just add one configuration that says, oh, I want this device to be on macOS 15.4.1, and then the device deals with everything else. And install application is coming as well. I say it's coming because it was already released last year, but without app config. And we think that app config, I'm not sure how many of you are using app config, but FileWave, for instance, is using app config for the new kiosk. And we know that some of you are using app config. So we didn't want to just bring MDM for apps on iOS without app config. So we have waited for this to be added by Apple. They did that in iOS 18.4. They had a smallish in 18.4, which is fixed in iOS 18.5. So we will support that with FileWave 16.1. And really important, as I said earlier, update statuses. Each time there is something that changes on the device on some specific topics, we can subscribe to that and get real-time notification. The most visible part is when you install an application. We don't have to wait until we send the next APN and to get the list of installed application list to get the status. When an app is installed, we get directly the notification that the app is installed and we can update file set status. And there are many of them. So Apple is introducing new update statuses every release as well. And we started to implement them in FileWave as well. So if you see things in inventory, apart from them are directly using DDM. So as I said, configuration as asset, you can have one asset. Here I took the credential, the SCEP asset, which allows you to configure a SCEP server. And you can use this SCEP server in both email account and with Exchange account. It will be the same one. And if you change anything in the SCEP server configuration or asset, it will be automatically updated on all the devices using the configuration. One thing we decided is that, as I said, it makes having an asset separated from configuration makes it simpler, but on the other hand, it adds complexity because now you have to deal with two different items, asset configuration. So we try to add some helpers for you because you are the ones dealing with that every day. We deploy automatically the assets. We made the assets dependency of the configurations. So which means that when you create a configuration and this configuration is using an asset, you just deploy the configuration and FileWave will deal with the rest. We deploy the asset automatically. If you want to delete an asset, we will make sure that no configuration is using this asset because that would break the configuration. So we will tell you, hey, be careful. This is not a good idea to remove this asset. On top of that, when you are inside configuration and you need an asset because you are used to the old profile way where everything was inside the profile, you can just pick the asset from the combo box here, or you can press create new, which will open the dialog to open the asset and only the assets which are compatible with this configuration. So it's done directly for you to make things simpler. So you don't have to close the editor to create the asset, to reopen the editor and to select the asset when it's there. If you still have some issues with the user experience there, don't hesitate to join one of the PO discussion every month, or to send email to us, or to use Project Board for improvements requests. We're there to hear for that, but at least we try to make it as simple as possible. One thing that I'm sure some of you will love, and I'm already waiting for the question when it comes for profiles. We integrated directly from the beginning granular options. So for instance, for the math options there, we can select if we change one option or the other and not all or nothing like it is today for profiles. So from these screenshots, we will allow the square root, the scientific mode. We will deny the math notes mode, but we will not touch the programmer mode. So it will just be managed by the device using the default or using another configuration. So we've done it directly from the scratch for configurations. So all configurations have these very granular settings. And we are working on bringing this to the important profiles. There are 100 profiles to change, so we will probably not do all of them, but at least the most important ones, like the restriction profiles or the login profiles, we are bringing that to profiles as well. So stop modifying the camera when you just want to enable or to disable something in the restrictions. Now, big question. Do you want to use MDM or DDM? I would say let us decide. So FileWave most of the time knows which one to use because it depends on what your device supports and what you want to do. So for instance, as I said, tvOS is now capable of using DDM now that you are running tvOS 18.4. So if you have an Apple TV running iOS 18.0 and you want to upgrade it, FileWave will automatically use MDM to upgrade to tvOS 18.4. And tomorrow, if you have this device is running tvOS 18.4 and you will go to tvOS 18.5, we will pick DDM because it's more reliable and it works faster. So we will do that for you. You have nothing to do. The same for install application that we are working on with FileWave 16.1. It starts to be enabled with iPadOS or iOS 18.5 plus. We will do it for you automatically. You don't have to do anything. So it's there. We do it, and you probably do it already without knowing it, because that's already there in FileWave 16.0.
And hey, PN, there was one question
Yep.
in the chat that you
Okay.
want to look at.
And you just skip enrollment. So I may have an answer for what role does the skep play? So it's the skep cert plays. The skep cert is used to provide the certificate which is used by the device for the MDM protocol. So when you enroll a device, the device connects to FileWave and it requires a certificate. And your FileWave instance acts as a SCAPE certificate, or SCAPE server, sorry, to generate a unique certificate for each device. For DDM, it's because DDM is built on top of MDM, that's the same certificate. Now, why is the SCAPE certificate removed from the endpoint? It should not, because it is installed directly by the MDM profile, and it should never be removed unless the MDM profile is removed. So here, I would say what we need to figure out is to why, and we probably need to involve Apple on this point, because that's the only way I know to remove the SCAPE certificate, which has been done during MDM enrollment, is to remove MDM enrollment. So if it's not the case, then there is something wrong on the device, and we will have to figure out what's wrong there.
Something like
But
archiving an iOS device might do that, right? If I pick to archive a device, I think it tells the device to unenroll.
So it really depends. So if you remove a device from FileWave, so if you archive it or if you remove it, you have an option which is, should I unenroll the device from MDM? There is one. The way to do that is to ask the device to check in and to return a specific. I remember. I think it's error 301, if I remember correctly. And then the device is told to remove the profile. So that's. But then the device is unenrolled completely. So, and unless you remove the profile, the SCAPE certificate should not be removed. And by default, FileWave does not enable this option because that comes from super long time ago, where we had, unfortunately, some database problems. We had a version of Postgres which could cause at some point database corruption. And sometimes devices would be unenrolled by mistake or by mistake. The DB was corrupted, and then restoring the DB would corrupt the device. So we don't send the remove MDM profile option anymore by default. So in theory, the escape search should never be removed unless you remove the device from FileWave. So something to check with support, and maybe we should have Apple looking at this as well. Yeah, I hope so. We'll find what was wrong there. So moving forward with DDM, where you have to do the job, because I said before that FileWave is doing it for you. I lied a little bit, sorry. It's really for the profile-like configuration. For these ones, we tried initially to have something which was doing the magic for you, but it was too magic, and there is not enough overlap to have one unique thingy which could be both a profile and a configuration. Even the configurations which are a replacement for the profiles, they are not completely one-to-one. Apple, for instance, decided that in 2020 there is no reason to have non-encrypted communication, so they removed the options to have non-TLS options for email, for instance. So if you have a profile which is not using encrypted connection, which I hope you don't, but let's say you have, if we want to deploy this with DDM, we can't, because there is no equivalent in DDM. And there is many small details like this, which makes profile and configuration not one-to-one equivalent. So sorry, we decided that it would be probably simpler for everyone that you know your devices, you know your configuration, and then you know if you can use MDM profiles or DDM configuration. Easiest way is probably for everything which is common to use kill profiles. Apple never said that they will remove profiles, so they are still working, they are still there. There are some of them which are sometimes deprecated, but there is no hint, and knock on wood, that this in 2 weeks, in 1 month, sorry, that they will get rid of profiles. But if things are in both and there is nothing new in DDM, you can still use profiles. Now, there are configurations which bring settings which are not in MDM. So for instance, the matte configuration, that's only DDM. So for this one, it's more or less a no-brainer. If you want to deploy this, you need DDM, and you need to make sure that the device is compatible. So I will really recommend to look at Apple's documentation. You have the developer documentation, which gives a lot of hints about where the supported platforms, and the end user, a little bit less developer based documentation. Each configuration has a link which tells which platform is supported. Not always correct. Don't hesitate to open feedback tickets. We do that all the time, and sometimes one attribute is specific to a specific version, but at least the documentation is updated quite frequently by Apple, and most of the time it's okay. So, and the guys usually are responding quite quickly when we ask and we report an issue there. One small note, if you are looking in documentation about what happens if I deploy both MDM profiles and DDM config for the same items to the dock, I don't know. It's not in the documentation. It's not. Apple doesn't tell how it works, so the device decides how it works. Most of the time, the last one wins. But in terms of DDM versus MDM, last one is a fuzzy concept. So I would recommend to not mix for the same config, the same setting, both DDM and MDM. Talking of which, if you want to debug what's happening, we've introduced, when we introduced DDM, a new tab on the right-hand side of the client info, which starts to be a bit crowded here. I'm not sure. I don't think our UX designers are here because they are sending me email every week saying that we should revisit that and make it simpler. So I hope that we will have some time very soon to make it simpler. But we have added a tab which shows the DDM declaration. Not sure you've used it already, but it doesn't look like this in FileWave 16.0. It's much simpler, but we've made it better in 16.1, which is coming in a couple of weeks. We are starting the QA on this one very soon. It now shows you more details about what will be in the declaration. So for instance, I can maybe show you just a live one. I don't know if it's large enough, but here I was able to install an app using DDM, and it tells me the file set ID, it tells me the name of the file set, the identifier of the app,
Hey,
and
I
if
think
I
you're
so,
I think you're sharing just the window of
uh,
PowerPoint, and
I'm
so
sorry.
I
Oh,
wondered as your
sorry.
mouse was moving.
Yeah. Uh, oh, okay. Anyway, it's something similar to here. Sorry. Yeah. I will not stop showing and reshowing, but yeah. Um, on this one, it shows the, for instance, of software update, all the details about the configuration. So it shows you exactly what we've sent. We obfuscate passcode, we obfuscate data, we obfuscate long information. So you shouldn't be afraid of seeing password visible there, but it shows you more detail. And you have two different panels here. One is the defined declaration. So let's say you hit model update, but your device is offline. You will see what the device will receive. And on the right side, you will see what the device got the last time the device checked in. So we have really both information. And if something is wrong on the device and you don't know why the device is not behaving the way you expect, that's the first place to go and to look at. Another place to look at is still the good old MDM command history, because, as I said, it's still based on top of MDM. So if you don't see a declarative management command which has been acknowledged by the device, that means that your device is not working well with DDM. So here, either the device is not compatible, so check the version of your device and the documentation, and if not, then the usual debugging steps, which is usually giving a phone call to Derek and our lovely support team, and we will try to figure out what's going wrong there. So, but DDM looks usually more robust than MDM. Now, what's next? So we have a few things which we still want to do for DDM. The first one, something to know, we haven't worked on parameterized values. So I'm not sure if everybody knows there, but today, when you have a profile, you can use any inventory variable in the profile. So you can use percent device ID, and it will replace the device ID inside your profile. If your device has been enrolled using LDAP, you can even use custom fields which are bound to LDAP, and then we will replace that automatically before we send the profile. So you can create one generic profile which will be customized for each user. It's not the case yet for DDM. There is a little bit of challenge there. The protocol is a bit more secure than for MDM, and it requires checksum verification, which means that if we change the profile on the fly or the profile configuration on the fly, the checksum will fail. So we have to adapt the checksum. So internal source of FileWave. But yeah, that explains why it's not there, but that's something we really want to address because we know that it's quite useful. We started to add a handful of statuses, which allows quick report from devices, but we don't have all of them. So we want to have as many as possible, but we don't want to go in a situation where, yes, it's cool, DDM, it's much faster and much scalable because everything is on the device. And then the resources of the server are down because each device reports every 2 seconds something has changed on the device. So before we add too many status reports, we want to have something very likely using FileWave policy to let you define exactly what you want to know. You may not be interested in some items, and it's really depending on your setup. And we have enterprise customers here, we have education customers, we have big education groups, we have SME, SMB, sorry, and it's really depending on your needs. So we want you to be able to master and to control what will be sent by the devices. Next item, and I see John Kane is there, and he will love that. Maybe supporting more devices. I mean, Apple introduced Vision Pro a couple of years ago, and these ones could be managed by MDM, and DDM plays a role there. So why not? I love playing with Vision Pro. That's a fun toy. Another thing, which is probably way more useful for most of you, but even if John Kane will love to have Vision Pro support, on-device predicates. As I mentioned at the very beginning, that's a really cool feature for DDM where we can define how an activation or when an activation enables or disables a configuration. And this is evaluated directly on the device. So the typical example from Apple is I enable a Wi-Fi configuration only when the passcode is compliant. So it's a little bit like conditional access on Microsoft side. But here you can do something and tell, okay, I don't want to let this user access email or access Wi-Fi, this protected Wi-Fi, unless the device passcode is correct. Today, you can do that with FileWave, but you need to have the device polled by FileWave, reporting that everything is okay. Then FileWave moves the device to the smart group, then sends the configuration or the profile to the device, and then we have to poll the device, so it's not real time. With on-device predicates, this can be done real time and even without contacting FileWave, except for reporting status. So from a performance and reliability perspective, it's way better. So that's really something we would like to add to FileWave. Another small item, which could be quite interesting, again, in terms of better user experience, but not for you, but for your end users. And in terms of load and resource on the server, together with the, let's say, server-side API for DDM, there is an on-device API which allows managing app installation directly. So you still control which apps will be installed, but instead of having FileWave server defining in the activation that these apps are installed or not installed, you have a third state, which is more or less they are available in a kiosk. And a native application like FileWave Kiosk could interact with iOS APIs and deal directly with installation without going back to FileWave sending a notification and changing the configuration to add the app installation. Everything would be done locally or between the device and Apple, but without hammering FileWave server. So again, better user experience. You get even the usual progress bar that you see on the App Store. So it should be much better in terms of user interaction if you use the kiosk for your end users. So that could be a quite nice user experience there. Last but not least, in a bit more than a month, there will be Apple WWDC in Cupertino. I'm sure that some of you will install directly macOS 16 and iOS 19. Some other will just try to find where is the option in FileWave. By the way, there is a new configuration option to manage software update. to make sure that your users are not upgrading to iOS 19 until you are ready to validate that and they are not using a beta version in production. But yeah, that's the usual new versions of operating systems. And as usual, they come with new configurations, with new assets, with new commands, with plenty of new things. That means that for FileWave, we will spend a couple of weeks hunting for changes in the documentation, discussing with Apple, uh, reporting issues in Apple feedback for the beta, improving things. But yeah, that's the interesting time of the year where everybody starts looking where to go in vacation and where FileWave developers are adding new things in FileWave. So don't know. That's I should have marked the question mark a bit bigger, but because that's usually the big surprise, and we'll see what summer will bring us and what will add to Apple Fall Release 2025. And I think I'm on time for the end of the
Yeah, you're
PowerPoint
within. Yeah,
presentation. I let a little bit of time for questions if
yeah.
there
If
is any.
somebody wants to, you can use the chat, the text chat, or you can hit the little raise hand button if you want to be able to speak. If it's easier to ask your question, either one. Although your presentation was pretty good, like I mean, covering all the bases. So if nobody had a question, I could see why, because it was very complete.
Um, Maybe is any one of you already using DDM configurations? I mean, really the profile configurations, or you're still on profiles? Don't hesitate to drop a small message in the chat if you are using DDM config and maybe why you are using them, or if you are scared about using them, why you are scared about using them. What is using DDM config yet? Yeah, I mean it's
It's okay if there's no questions.
yeah.
That's good. We're going to do more of these sessions that are, maybe topic specific, and we'll try and tell you ahead of time what the topic will be so that you'll know if it'll be of interest to you. But I hope this was helpful for everybody. So with that, maybe I'll stop recording.